Good morning. Welcome back to another installment of Dr. Bill Speak. Today we're speaking on part four of the belief system. It's important to understand that this series on the belief system is only the introduction to a much wider view of how we grow spiritually. And the belief system is part of learning why we don't grow spiritually, even when we think that we are. You see, we started this series talking about the word word. And we defined that word as a symbol, pretty much like a flag is a symbol of a country, but not the country. We define word as a symbol that brings to mind a particular thought, idea, person, place, or thing. But we also stated that the word, in addition to being a symbol, when it comes to our mind, in our mind, it is also symbolic. It does not really say, like if we say the word chair, there's not a chair within the word itself, and there's not a chair in our mind. So what the word does is create a language system for helping us to navigate the world. The problem with a language system is that it is not a system of reality. It is a system of illusions. And once we understand that, then we begin to understand why it is that we do believe some of the things we believe, because we navigate through this world by, first of all, seeking, even from the very beginning, when a baby is sucking, when it's come out of the womb, is seeking nourishment for survival. So we go through life seeking survival and comfort. When that baby cries and is not hungry, and sometimes it needs a diaper change, and sometimes it just needs to be held. And holding the baby, they have learned, is as important as the nurture. So our comfort and our survival sometimes overlap, even when we don't realize it. Okay? So now, when we talk about the belief system, we're talking about that system of beliefs that we have come to accept as being true or real. And I just stopped by to tell you this morning that beliefs are not facts. The earth is a fact. Our beliefs about the earth is not a fact. Some may believe one thing, others another. And quite often in politics, we find that. In religions, we find that. In economic system, we find that. So as we navigate into the world, seeking survival and comfort, we run into institutions that begin to shape what it is that we believe and what it is that we choose not to believe. Because believing is a choice. We can believe or we can choose not to believe. Now we talk quite a bit in this series about our survival and our comfort. But there is an even more important aspect of our lives that guide us through the world as we see it. And that's our purpose. You see, our purpose, along with our survival and our desires and wants, is what guides us in any particular way. Good example. If our purpose is to be a wealthy individual, then our survival and that shapes what our survival and our desires, our comfort look like. If it's to be a wealthy individual, then we won't be, our purpose will not allow us to be satisfied with an old truck like I have, and it won't a brand new car. It won't allow us to be satisfied in an apartment or a house, but we want a mansion. So our purpose can for living a life that will fulfill that purpose, that lifelong goal. And we set separate goals within that purpose. That purpose then become our guiding principle. And our purpose then becomes our master. It becomes our master. And our purpose is what bring our belief system into our everyday life. And as we live our everyday life, seeking our purpose, I mean, even if our purpose is to be a gangster, our everyday life will be built on those things that will cause us to achieve that purpose. If you can achieve it, you can believe it. You hear him say that. If it's to be a priest, then our everyday life will cause us to do and seek out those things that will achieve that purpose. So you see, last in part 3, we talked about how our institutions, we start off with our family influence first to shape our belief system through two things, through rewards and punishment. You get all A's in school if you learn the lesson well. If you don't do the lesson well, then we may flunk you. You have to repeat that grade. But the whole idea of education system is to get you to accept the belief system. And accepting the belief system does not always reward you. And we'll talk more about that next video. We talk about Hans. But what I do want to talk about so that we'll know is that now that we know that purpose is an important part, we have to understand that purpose is a psychological thing. And in our psychology, purpose then has two aspects. One is the consciousness, and the other one is unconsciousness. You see, in our conscious day-to-day lives, in our conscious behavior, we seek that which define us in the moment that we're in as an individual with a purpose. You see, our conscious behavior is what's in the forefront of our minds. Our conscious behavior is made up of a group of words who have been ascribed values. Our purpose give value to the words that we have put into our minds. See, so our minds then have a conscious level, and that conscious level generally is the day-to-day guiding of our purpose, but it also guides us with the immediate effects of survival and comfort. I mean, we go to work as a means of achieving our survival, and then we come home and sit in our big easy chair with or without companionship, or with or without drains, or whatever it is that makes us comfortable. So we have those two aspects, our lives, survival and being comfortable, that is being guided basically by our purpose. See, and we have an individual consciousness, but there's also the subconscious. You see, as we go through life, learning these values and these words, learning what our institutions consider good or bad, or right or wrong, and in our religion is either heaven or hell, sin or not sin, whatever it is, starting back with the family when they say Santa Claus is coming to town, and you got to be naughty or nice. Or the boogeyman is going to get you if you don't go to bed. It's all those things that shaped us, that shaped our behavior. Also, messed with our minds. It taught us how we should behave and the consequences of behaving in the manner in which we did. So a lot of our lives is considered doing what we believe, and what we believe don't mean that it's necessarily what the culture believes, because we may believe that we can be anti the culture and do better. See, some people believe that I think if I can steal more, then I can get working. And if I can steal more, I can have survival and comfort based on my purpose. And my purpose is to become the biggest drug dealer in town, to become the best armed robber in town. Whatever it is that we come to believe, it is all factored into how our purpose has guided us through different experiences and different institutions. So what I'm here to tell you today is that what we don't realize and what is more difficult for us to accept is just as there is a individual consciousness and individual unconsciousness, there's also a group consciousness and a group unconsciousness. You see, like some scientists some time ago at Harvard, demonstrated that we have a belief system, and that belief system is what they call an inhibitory system. And that inhibitory system is capable of bringing consciousness, bringing to consciousness 7 plus or minus details, plus or minus 2 details. No more than that. Even though there are thousands of input bombarding us at all times, if we got it all at once, we couldn't handle it. See, so we become conscious of 7 plus or minus 2 of those at any time, and the others go into our subconscious. Good example. Let's say that we witness an event, and what we remember about the event is one thing, and someone say, but more than that happened. Well, that's all I remember, because it never went into your consciousness. So they hypnotize you, and they go back to that time, and then you begin to be aware of all those other things that was going on. Those are the things that went into the subconscious. So we got our subconscious there that's guiding our consciousness, because the way that the inhibitory system works is based on, first of all, our purpose. And our purpose is no more than a set of attitudes. This is why Jesus talked about beatitudes, being good attitudes. So our purpose, which is a set of attitudes, then has determined what we will see, what we will hear, because the inhibitory system turns us toward what it is that's important to first our survival and then our comfort. Good example, if you're walking along and all of a sudden something happens outside of your line of vision, you do what we call an orient responses. And that orient responses means that you would turn toward that to see what it is, to see if it is danger. If it is something sneaking up behind you, something that could be harmful, a snake on the ground or a robber that might get ready to rob you or something. But we orient, that orienting response. It's a matter of survival, See, so even though we're not conscious of what's going on behind us, part of our unconscious is always part of what is guiding us at all times. Now, if we've been taught that snakes are harmful, which most of us have been taught, and we know that, and we believe that, well then, if something comes near, on the ground, we're going to be oriented toward it to see if it's a snake. If we've been taught that dogs will kill you, and there's a dog somewhere around, then we will have what we call fear. You see, our fear then comes in as part of our belief system. There are 2 ways of navigating the world, 2 main purposes in the world. One is through fear, and the other is through love. We talked about that in the first video. We didn't go into it too deeply, but what we did say was that love is of God, and we haven't gotten into God's system yet. We're still into the fear system, because the belief system is founded on fear. Fear, has the belief that there's not an abundance in the world, but a scarcity. So I've got to always have more, do more, get more than somebody else. It sets up a competition between me and my brothers. And it doesn't mean, and when I say brothers, I mean brothers and sisters. I should say neighbors, so I won't be accused of being sexist. But me and our neighbors, are competing for the same resources, because we believe if we don't get our part or more than we need, that we would be left out. But that's a belief. It's not a fact. We don't live in a world of scarcity. God said we have an abundance. But anyway, getting back to our purpose then, our purpose is not to be part of those who are without or part of those who are in poverty. See, we want to we want to be better than or more than, or we want to be the best at whatever it is our purpose tells us that we're going for. And if that means having more of the resources that we need and denying those resources to others who also need it, then that's perfectly okay, because we're fulfilling our purpose. Now this is what we call our ego. See, our ego is trying to help us to become what we want to be, not for anything good, because the ego understands that whatever brings us pleasure will eventually bring us pain. You see, the ego is all about the ego. Now, this ego, some of us call it ego, some of us call it the disease, some of us call it the devil. There's other groups call it different things. But whatever you call it, it's a part of that mind, that mindset that we have come to believe that make us selfish, make us arrogant, makes us greedy, that makes us hateful. You see, our unconscious mind takes in all these ideas about that capitalism is so great. So we're going to always be trying to make more money, even if we are on the underside of the belief system. Then our belief is that if we're going to come up, then we got to be like the people who benefit from it. We got to have the same thing that they have. If they got a Miss America, we got to have Miss Black America. If they got a bank, then we got to have a black bank. If they got this, then we got to have a black that, or the Puerto Rican that, or the Hispanic that, But all those different things within our belief system is doing one thing. It is separating us. How can we love one another if we are so against one another? How can we love one another if everything we know and do, everything we believe separates us from one another? It's an impossibility. But that is the purpose of the ego. See, because the ego knows divided you stand. See, the ego has the belief that it can live beyond us, but it needs our souls to get the energy to live without God. So our belief system then, at some level, runs into the belief that there is a God, and that God is the master. And it rejects that belief by saying our purpose is our master. Well, Jesus pointed out to us that you cannot serve two masters. We have to decide who our master would be. Will it be love, or will it be fear? You see, I can remember with in the big book of AA, One of the things that I remember so vividly was when in the big book it says, and I may be paraphrasing, it says that we believe our problem was 100 forms of fear. And I thought about that. 100 forms of fear? Yeah, you see, fear then shows itself as anger. It shows itself as envy. It shows itself as greed. It shows itself as overprotection. It shows itself as a need and a desire to have more. It shows itself in so many ways. And we may have a different word for each one of those ways, but it all boils down to fear. You see, so fear keeps us separated, keep us competing with one another, wanting to be better than one another, rather than wanting to love one another, to join one another, to share with one another. The good thing about my life is that I learned because of my belief system that led me into a life of addiction and affliction. And when I knew one thing all my life, that there was a better way. There was something better. I didn't know what it was. And people had started to try to teach me what it was. But everything they taught me ended up being part of the belief system. And it didn't make anything any better. The one thing that I ran into that made my life better was recovery. And recovery brought me out of the belief system and taught me a whole new belief system. And that was the beginning of my spiritual journey. I went into the church as a pastor, etc. And I learned a great deal. But one of the things I learned was that religion was not the answer. I had to continue to grow spiritually. And that's what we're going to get into, how we do that. Hopefully we understand that the way not to do it is through our belief system. Because our belief system, I don't care if we oppose the good or oppose the bad, it's part of that dual system. Good and bad, but that continuum in between is all the same system. You may add a scientific and say, well, there's a bell-shaped curve in there. Well, everything in that bell-shaped curve is still part of the same system. So what we have to do then is say, well, what happened? What happened? What do we do? Well, there have been teachers all throughout history who have taught us the way, who have taught us how to avoid being caught up in our belief system. At some level, we have always known better, but we never really wanted the alternative because we just didn't believe it. We did not believe that it could do for us what we believed our belief system would do. We did not believe that the belief system will have us become the richest person in the world and own everything. But then we die and leave it all. There's nothing we can carry with us. See? But that eternal system that teaches about is how we carry things through eternity. But anyway, we'll talk about that more when we get to the spiritual principles. But I just want to give you a little foreshadow now. So in part 5, we will talk about the American system and how it come to be. And not only we will talk about the American system, but I will point out how this American system is not uniquely American, and it is found everywhere. In my dissertation, I talked about the concept of Hans. And Hans is a Korean concept developed by the Minjung people, the Minjung poets and Minjung theologians and the Minju philosophers were those people who have been oppressed over in Korea. They have been overtaken 105 times in their history, and being overtaken and made into slaves. They experienced certain things, and and the Minju poets understood that this kind of oppression and how it darkened the soul, it darkened the heart, and they talked about it in very poetic and philosophical ways. And I want to talk about that and how it is related to the American experience. It's universal. It's universal, not just us. It's all across everything. But the choice is also universal. We do not have to try to serve two masters, because we will love one and hate the other. But we can't choose the one we want. And once we made that choice, we live with that choice. Thank you, and keep coming back. It'll work it if you work it.